Did you just get orders to Dover Air Force Base and now you're wondering where on earth is Delaware and what do I need to know before I get there? Well, I got you covered in this video. I'll go over the top things you need to know before moving here to Dover Air Force Base. And some of them may not be as obvious, but after watching the video, you'll definitely have a better understanding of exactly what to expect while you're stationed here at Dover Air Force Base. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Brandon. I help people buy and sell homes here in Delaware, and I've lived here my entire life, and on this channel, we'll go over exactly what it's like living here in Delaware. And if you're thinking about buying a home here in Delaware, I've actually included a guide that outlines the 7 critical mistakes I see buyers making that cause them to miss out on their dream home. If you want to download a copy so you avoid those mistakes, I'll put a link in the description below. So I get this question all the time from my clients PCSing here in the Dover Air Force Base, and they'll say, Brandon, I don't know anything about Delaware. So give me the cliff notes. Tell me what I need to know before I move there to Dover Air Force Base. And so this is what I tell them. This list really isn't any type of specific order, so make sure you stick around so you don't miss anything important. So the first thing I usually tell everyone is that you need to be aware of the weather here in Delaware. We get all 4 seasons here. Now, typically the seasons aren't super severe to where as though we're dropping 2 feet of snow every day or there's a bunch of tornadoes or hurricanes. But when the seasons change, you definitely notice. In the early fall months, we're talking about temperatures around 60 or so. But in the dead of winter, we can get down to as low as 30 degrees and the occasional snowfall here and there. And in those early spring months, it tends to still be a little bit chilly here around the 50s. But then when we hit everyone's favorite season, summer, you start to see those warmer temperatures where we're talking about the 80s and 90s. But the one thing I do have to warn you about the warmer months here is that it's very, very humid. And when I mean humid, I'm talking about make sure you bring some extra baby powder for the old nether regions if you get my drift. So if you're coming from a different climate to where as though there aren't very many seasons or the only 2 types of weather you get is hot and very hot, this could definitely be a shock for you. One of the first things you may want to do before you get to Dover is actually update that wardrobe. The second thing you should know before you get here to Dover Air Force Base is that you're definitely going to need a vehicle. Now, I know if you're looking at Delaware or Dover Air Force Base on a map, it looks relatively small, but it's not very walkable. You're definitely going to need a vehicle because the public transportation isn't very reliable. It has very limited routes around here and the hours vary. Also, Dover isn't a very big base, so there's not very many amenities on the base itself or dining options. So more than likely, if you want to go grab, a bite to eat that isn't going to be fast food, or if you want to go off base to explore some different things that Dover has to offer, you're definitely going to need a car in order to do that. But it's not a bad thing. While you're definitely going to need a car, the commute time in Dover isn't bad at all. It's relatively low even during the busier times of day. It's only about 20 minutes according to the United States Census Bureau. And honestly, most days it's probably going to be less than that. The third thing you're going to want to know is the pace and the vibe of Dover and its surrounding area. It's a pretty small town and it's pretty laid back and chill, and it has those small town vibes, and just the overall pace is a little bit slower. And I know that sounds a bit strange to say, being that Dover is the capital of Delaware. So if you're single and ready to mingle, or if you're just a bit younger and looking for that faster pace and nightlife, Dover may be a bit boring for you, and it may take a little adjusting to get used to. Now, it's not to say that Delaware doesn't offer that type of big city feel. If you are looking for that bigger city feel, we do have the city of Wilmington that's located in northern Delaware. It isn't too far, about 30-45 minutes, and it has a lot of new and trending restaurants, a better social scene, and a lot more nightlife than you'll see in Dover. Or if that doesn't scratch that city itch that you're having, you can just take a short ride and you can get to Philly, DC, or New York. You can head out there for a weekend and not have to burn any additional leave. The next thing that you definitely need to know about is everyone's favorite topic, and that's housing. So just like everywhere else, you can decide to either buy or rent, and you can either live on base or off base. So to be quite honest with you guys, the best way I've found to describe base housing here on Dover Air Force Base is it's hit or miss. On one side, I have people who say they absolutely hated their time there, whether it was the long waiting list, the lack of communication between the management companies, repair requests that were never taken care of, or the high utility costs. They could just not wait to get out of there. But on the other hand, I've had some clients who never needed any repairs. They enjoyed the convenience and they wanted to avoid the stress of actually going out there to house hunt. And they also liked the sense of security that they got on base because, let's face it, you're essentially living in a gated community. Now, when you're talking about off base, you can either rent or buy. The rental market just all depends on exactly what you're looking for. If you're looking for a townhouse or a single family, and you can always find a deal here or there. And it also depends on what type of living arrangement you have. You might decide you want to get some roommates and split the cost and save some of that sweet BAH. If you did decide to buy, the average price point here in Kent County, which is where Dover Air Force Base is located, is around $325,000. But again, that all just depends on what type of house you're searching for. The final thing you need to know is there can be a lack of medical facilities with long wait times. I don't think this is specifically a Dover thing, but more so a nationwide thing that we've been experiencing now for the last couple of years with the shortage of healthcare professionals. And that's always been an issue of concern nationwide. But nonetheless, Dover is no exception to that. One of the issues I hear frequently from my clients are just the lack of doctors or the long wait list to get in to see a doctor. So a good practice that I usually recommend to my clients, or if you have any specific conditions that require specialty care or you need a specialist of some sort, whether it be for you or maybe a family member or your kid, schedule an appointment or maybe do a telehealth appointment with that doctor before you get here so you don't have any lapse in care while you're getting settled here in Dover. Now that you're up to speed on the main things that you should know before moving to Dover Air Force Base, you're probably asking yourself, well, Brandon, what about the rest of Delaware? And if you are, I actually made a video describing the pros and cons of living in Delaware right here.